So today I'll be talking about the 2012 movie The Oogieloves and the Big Balloon Adventure, directed by Matthew Diamond. Now, I said that super fast because this movie... be afraid. Now, Macaulay, you ask me, why would you say that? That's a bit harsh and a bit rash. Let me tell you, this movie exceeded my expectations in terms of just how bad it was going to be. Okay, I knew. I mean, obviously, it was on the worst list, and people rigged this on IMDb, as it has been talked about previously. But that's not what I'm going to be talking about today. I'll be mentioning a few things that others really haven't. Okay, for one thing, there are a few jokes that I actually like in this movie, but I could count all of them on one hand. Um, the rest of it is just bleak and really goes against a lot of the kinds of kids movies out there. I think most people would point to Disney and Pixar, for example, and say that those are some good examples right there. But even movies from Don Bluth's animation department, um, people would believe can be both appealing to adults as well as kids. It really shouldn't be that hard to please kids, so maybe spend a little time, pleasing everyone. Or, maybe I'm just bonkers and think that studios don't want to make money and clearly should just stay to have the 3-year-olds watch this in the theater because, they can walk there by themselves. Clearly. For a movie that asks me about the big person you came with, it really makes me wonder, does this movie think about anyone outside of like 2-year-olds, 4-year-olds? I can't remember the cutoff for this kind of shit anymore. It's hard to really tell. But this movie doesn't even try to make itself entertaining for adults. It throws in a couple of things. I mean, the Hoover vacuum is named J. Edgar because, having a FBI director that is a vacuum, is he like a clean sweep? What else is there to it? You have a couple of other adult things, but there aren't really that many. And they're more references as opposed to actual jokes. A lot of the jokes in this movie are just kind of cheesy and not even like a fun kind of cheesy, just like more coincidences as opposed to anything that's actually funny. And the acting in particular is what really holds this movie back. You have a number of relatively well-known actors and actresses. I mean, you have Cloris Leachman, you have Jamie Presley and Christopher Lloyd and Carrie Elwes and Tony Braxton, and you start thinking, well, gee, that sounds like it should be an interesting movie, and it's really not. They're just kind of there. They either look distracted or dazed and confused or bored as all get out. Um, just impatient in terms of getting their few $100 or few $1,000 or however much they made off this movie. I don't know, and I don't really care. But you could tell that many of them were just so bored, and some would chew the scenery a little bit. I mean, you have this character named Jubilee Rounder, which who the hell came up with that name? But Jubilee Rounder with her strange circular tails and how she said everything was square and she commanded a ladder to come down and raise everyone up. And you have Cloris Leachman really getting into it. What some may have alluded to as a drug trip, and I don't know if I'd go that far, but I mean, you might want to be doing something else if you're going to be watching this. I wasn't, because I wanted to make sure I knew what the hell was going on and that I could process everything, but I certainly see why people would. This movie seems to even have a few kinds of things and references to that kind of culture too, in terms of what you should be doing right now. Like, why are you watching this stone cold sober? You're a fool for doing that, unless you're like a 2-year-old. And that's the thing too. This movie doesn't really have like a medium audience, and usually that's not a bad thing. I wouldn't necessarily say a movie should pander to teenagers or young adults or to everyone, but I feel like it should at least attempt to appeal to someone in those age groups on occasion. I mean, clearly the target audience for this is not a bunch of 30-year-olds or even 10-year-olds. It's more like babies and 4-year-olds. But just a lot of the stuff in here is very weird and questionable, especially if it's just for babies and for 4-year-olds. And any time that they do try to attempt to bring someone else outside of the preschool age into the groove of this movie, it's very odd. Odd is what I'm going to go with here. So, something that I have to keep in mind here, and that you may as well keep in mind here too, is that this is really more like one of those sing along videos that you may have watched when you were growing up and you were like 6 years old, and everything was based in song and dance and didn't really need to have a cohesive story, except usually those sing along things were either like from already established movies such as like Disney's Aladdin or a lot of those Disney products, or it was its own little goofy thing that was contained within itself that had a little bit of a narrative but was still fun enough for, small children to really jam out to and dance with, sure. But this movie was released to theaters, like in a wide audience, and it's also known for being, well, basically the biggest bomb of the time, anyway. To be released in more than 2,000 theaters, barely making like $1 million on opening weekend, which is very, very low for a movie being released in over 2,000 theaters. So, why would this movie get the theater treatment? Well, I guess the director of the Teletubbies, the producer of this, Ken Beiselman, whose names appear in all glitters and sparkles at the beginning, really wanted to add this feature of standing up and sitting down. But you're doing that in the movie theater, and a bunch of little kids is the primary audience for this. I may have missed the grammar thing or two with saying that, but you get my point. A lot of little kids in the theater, and they're going to be standing up and sitting down because they're going to be causing a ruckus anyway when they're in public in a movie theater. You think that it's going to help anything by having them do that constantly? And it's odd too, with all this pacing in terms of how many times you're standing up and how many times you're sitting down. Just kind of like, okay, cool, I guess. Some of the things in this are really weird too and very forced. I mean, you have one of these creepy creatures, if you give it more than 3 seconds of thought, named Toofy. Goofy Toofy. And it's very hard to get it washed out of your head once you have this phrase emblazoned into your head. But his pants keep falling down, and he thinks he's cool and refuses to wear a belt, and you have to keep singing at him to put his pants back on. And why? I mean, I thought you were aiming this at, preschoolers. I mean, this is a very obvious aim anyway. Why would you want preschoolers to tell other people to put on their... Why would they need to? That they can put on their own pants. It's not funny. It's not endearing. It's not even sung well, if that's even such a thing in this movie, to have solid singing. If you're going to have everything in song and dance, you may as well have it fun. Uh, and it's really not even like a situational thing where someone pulls his pants down. No, he just doesn't wear a belt and his pants keep falling down. So they tell him, Goofy, Toofy, pick up your pants. And now I'm going to never get that stuck out of my head until like 3 days from now. Great. Um, and like I said, the songs that they have are just weird. They have Toni Braxton as Rosalie Rosebud, even though she's allergic to roses and keeps sneezing all the time. Then they do this whole song and dance, and and Goofy Toofy is like, "Oh, gee, I really wish I could get the sniffles more often." Who says that? Who the hell says that? That's just weird. Ugh. This movie tries your patience, is what it really does. It makes you think, oh, why am I sitting here and doing this? And then I remember, oh yeah, because I don't respect myself enough, do I? So now that I got that on my system, alright, what's the plot of this movie? Well, you have these three odd creatures. You have a green one, you have a yellow one, you have a purple one. Toothy, Schloofy, and like Woozy or Toozy or some shit. I don't really care anymore. But you have these three creatures, and they get out of bed, and the most obnoxious waking up song ever. And you have this vacuum who loses his tangle of magical balloons, and supposedly they were the only magical balloons in the whole town, and it was for Schloofy's. It was the pillow, by the way. Sorry, Schloofy the pillow's surprise birthday party, which they keep talking about right in front of him after they wake him up. What's the point of the surprise? You're talking about in front of him. But I guess Schloofy the pillow's like high as a kite. I don't know. It's weird, and he like vomits feathers, and it's weird. And then there's a talking window named Wendy who keeps having changing like curtains or drapes or whatever. In other words, her hair keeps changing colors. That's only like the slightest of this movie's inconsistencies. Um, and also, this talking vacuum, as I said before, is a Hoover vacuum, and it's named J. Edgar because the 2-year-olds are rolling in their seats about that, and even like the older people are rolling in their seats about that. Oh yeah, that J. Edgar Hoover, he really deserves a spot in the Oogieloves movie. Ah yes, my 2-year-old is so excited. Oof. You have this talking window named Wendy, like the Wendy Window. Oh yeah, there's that song too. 1 2 1 2 3, Windy Window. What these? Oh god, this movie. It gets stuff stuck in your head that's not even fun. It's just weird and like, doesn't really make sense in normal conversation. So you can't even make jokes about it the way you can with Mean Girls or any other fun comedy or anything like that. And this movie really is aimed as a comedy. I mean, it's certainly not a drama by any means. The stakes aren't that high. You really don't care unless, like, you believe in, I don't know, stinking unicorns or whatever. It's hard to say anymore. But this movie, like, insults your intelligence if you even, like, think about having a thought that lasts longer than 30 seconds. Well, that's if you're lucky. Hell, if it's even longer than 10 seconds, it like shoves it in your face and says, "Hey, watch me change right this instant." Not even fun change, but moving on. So just in case you were worried that there were going to be actual stakes in this game, then they sing a song about their flapjacks that they're having for breakfast. And they have to have breakfast first before they go searching all these magical balloons. Ah, yes. I guess it's to teach your children that it's important to have breakfast at the beginning of your day. It's not the worst lesson I've heard. But then they like have these portals which they change into their clothes, which are just odd. I mean, they're dressed more like, I don't know, like 12-year-olds, which I guess makes sense because you're always looking up in terms of age, but I don't know, it's just weird seeing these aliens, essentially, is what I'd call them. Also, I don't know where the name Oogieloves came from. I know there's a show named My Bedbugs, which these creatures originated from. Maybe it's from there. I don't know, and it doesn't really matter to me. But anyway, you have this window say "Good luck, y'all," and I guess she's like supposed to be like a Southern lady or something. I mean, I like the y'all part, but why? I think that's my constant question about this movie. Why? Why is this a thing? Why does this need to exist? And why am I watching it? And the first set of people that they go to for the balloon are Jubilee Rounder and I'll just call it a Circle Lady, Cloris Leachman's part essentially. She ends up driving around a steering wheel on its own and just going in circles, and you can tell she's going a bit cuckoo as well. Everything is very circular and round, and she loves polka dots and everything that's circle oriented or circle esque. And she ends up saying that silly fish trees are for kids. I guess they're up to some tricks. Anyway, they have this whole song and dance, and this is basically what happens. They have 5 balloons, so they go to this random place that's supposed to have one of the balloons. They meet some people there. It's usually a celebrity cameo. They spend like 3 to 4 minutes, maybe slightly longer, depending on who it is. Um, they have a lot of talking. There's a lot of deliberating in terms of whether or not they should give them the balloon because suddenly they own these balloons. That doesn't make any sense. I guess it's just the added conflict in there. Then there's a song and dance routine, and then they get the balloon, and then they move forward, and then they keep collecting the balloons on their bikes, and then they do this like song of success, which at first is tolerable at best, and then it keeps playing like 5 or 6 more times, and by the end of it, you're just like, God, please end. So, after Cloris Leachman and Jubilee Rounder, then they have the Milky Marvin. Oh, so many M's. Like Milky Marvin's Milkshake Manor, where they serve milkshakes, and that's where you have Chaz Palminteri. So I really haven't watched a lot of his movies. The main thing you probably would know, if anything, would be A Night at the Roxbury. That's the main thing. I'm sure there are other roles too. Don't criticize. But you have him, and then you have this other lady. I can't recognize her from Squad. I'm sure she's in something else. You could probably look up at the IMDb and do the connections on your own end. But they have this like milkshake drinking contest, and it's really weird. I mean, the owl joke they make before when they keep asking the owl about something and they keep saying who, it's okay. It doesn't piss me off as much as it pissed off other people, I'm sure. But I was like, okay, I was fine once. You keep doing it. Okay, it's a little old. But they offer toothy pepperoni and macaroni and cheese milkshake. Like, I love like pepperoni pizza and I love macaroni and cheese. And milkshakes are okay for me, but combining all 3 of them sounds nasty. Then they end up giving like this really weird milkshake, and I think it actually goes to like the fish. Yeah, there's a fish, by the way, who is like a goldfish apparently, but he drinks salt water, which is all kinds of inconsistent. But moving on. He's a bit annoying at first, but the more I get annoyed, the more I relate to him and his sarcasm and his constant spewing of jokes. It's like half and half towards the end in terms of what I laugh at and what I don't. I think your standards get lowered as you keep watching this movie because you realize that, oh God, I need to laugh before I get more depressed about things. Fun times. So they have this whole song and dance inside a milkshake manor, and they win the milkshake drinking contest, and they get their balloon, and then they go to like the next two. I get mixed up in which order it is, but essentially one of them is Tony Braxton, as Rosalie Rosebud, and she does this whole song and dance about having the sniffles and the cough, and you just gotta chew, and she sings the end part of a chew, and it's all kinds of odd, and why the hell is she here? And it's lovely Loveville, and living in Louisville, it's too close for me to not mention. But there you go. Then there's Carrie Elwes, whatever, from Princess Bride, and I guess he was in Saw as well. I haven't seen the Saw movies. I probably will one day, soon. But I would know him from The Princess Bride. I have seen that movie. I do like that movie. I probably don't love it as much as other people do, but I think it's a pretty decent film. And he's in this, and he is the creepiest motherfucker ever. Um, he has like a truck, a tractor, and there's a bird that hangs out, and apparently he has cataracts in both eyes. Why are we talking about cataracts in a movie aimed at 3-year-olds? I don't know. Is this like a science class? Should I be taking notes? Um, and I guess the girl, Oogieloves, speaks all kinds of languages. Sure, okay. And talks to the bird, and that's how she hears the cataract. And she even says hi four. That was pretty funny. I mean, their fingers are they're just, 4 fingers instead of the 5. I thought that was a little funny. That was like the handful of jokes. But wait, is it the hand of 4 or the hand of 5? Ooh, you may never know. So, the next thing, after they get this balloon from the top of a truck, is to go to this, like, town that doesn't allow, like, running or all the other things that they do, even though they never really ran. They just rode their darn bikes through everything. Okay. Um, then there's this like weird llama that actually speaks English, even though most of the other animals are just acting weird and like not talking very much. Okay. Sombrero flies in, a very out of place sombrero. I mean, okay, yes, a flying sombrero is not real, but even out of place for this movie, and that's saying something. And Jamie Presley and Christopher Lloyd come in, and you can make your complaints about whether or not they should have cast Mexican actors for this role if they're gonna name them like Lola and Lero Sombrero or something like that. But I will tell you something. The Mexican actors that were not cast were very fortunate because this movie is shit. I think for almost any other movie I would understand that argument, but making that argument for this movie is a waste of their time. In fact, I would say Mexican actors got the benefit because they did not star in this piece of trash. And it is trash. And why am I ragging so hard in this? Because they put it in a stinking 2,000 plus theaters and released it as a movie to criticize as opposed to just some song and dance compilation for your 3-year-olds to watch from like a VHS set. Or, okay, when it's released, a DVD set. Fine. But you're releasing this in theaters, and it's going to be judged as a movie because you release it into a movie theater. So therefore, I'm going to talk all the trash about it and say that the movie is trash as well. But anyway, they go to Jamie Presley and Christopher Lloyd. Um, Jamie Presley, she's like Earl's like ex-girlfriend, ex-wife, or girlfriend, wife, whatever. My name is Earl. And Christopher Lloyd's in so many damn things anymore. He has like over 200 credits. I mean, you have One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was his very first movie role, which I will be doing that movie review soon enough. You have probably his most famous role as Doc Brown from the Back to the Future trilogy. You have him in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. You have him in some other really bad movies too, like, Food Fight, which I'll be getting to later on. I know there's a series that I Hate Everything channel does, and one of the movies that they do is in a set of quote not Disney movies that has something where Christopher Lloyd stars in it in the same year as this movie, The Oogieloves, and also Food Fight. Um, but they're both in this, and yeah, you can tell they're not thrilled in the slightest. They're like, oh God, I'm here. This is where my life is. They did this whole song and dance, and the fish is like, can we get this shit done, please? Like, can we get the balloon and just like end this? And I agree. This needs to end. Jamie Presley starts hitting on the fish. That's a little weird. Christopher Lloyd gives him like a set of like this to that. Like I'm watching you or whatever. That's weird. Um, yeah, I mean there's a fair amount of jokes cracked that are decent. Let me go to my list and mention a few of them. Okay, let's see. It's gonna take me a while, as you may notice. Um, oh, and a rose by any other name, fine. When Rosalie and the Rosebud are talking, and they talk about having a rose by any other name, yeah, and she doesn't care anymore, and I'm like, same, same. Let's see here. I did like the silly fish trees are for kids line. Let's see here. Still looking, still looking. You're not throwing me up there. I'm a fish, not a football. Because they want to throw him up the top of the windmill. The fish. Ruffy. Okay, fine. Let's see. Oh, okay. One of the things I hadn't mentioned, in the Milkshake Manor, there were these like mock movie posters. This was also a thing in another movie called Howard the Duck, which later, another time. But this has a few of these kinds of movie posters that are inspired with cows in them, which I'm a sucker for puns. So there were probably some more jokes that I laughed at than I'm inclined to mention. I feel a little guilty. But one thing I don't mind mentioning, the 7-year hoof featuring Marilyn Monroe, bovine at Tiffany's. Oh God, I guess that cow that's watching is a bit of a cannibal. Okay, and the sound of music. Okay, all right. I like that. The rest of the movie was shit. So, yeah. This one's a hard one to sit through. Some would say, go get high if you're going to ever watch this. Go play drinking games if you're going to watch this. And then that sound is telling me I should probably end this soon. So, my suggestion is that make this a fun occasion if you're going to watch it. If I do ever watch this again, which I don't even know why I just entertain a possibility. But if I ever do watch it again, I'll probably make a game out of it. I'll probably make some points for different things. I'll probably have a friend over, someone that may enjoy bad movies as much as I do. This wasn't the worst movie ever. I found it to be not as much of an insult as Son of the Mask was to The Mask. I was pissed off at the directors and the jokes as much like I was an epic movie, even though I liked the jokes and disaster movie. Okay. And that movie is better than this one in my opinion. I think the biggest downfall for this movie was the acting, especially. They just didn't care, and it was so obvious, and it was hard for me to care as a result. The writing was subpar. There were a few jokes that I liked. Wasn't really anything wrong with like the directing or cinematography, but this thing was also a pile of shit. So even if you direct a pile of feces or excrement or whatever word you want to use for it, well, that that doesn't change the fact that it's a pile of you know what. Let's see. Oh, I did like the line. It's fedorable when the sombrero flew in. I did laugh at that one. I did. Yeah, this movie honestly sits right in the middle of everything so far. Um, I'm not sure how everything else is going to fall as a result. I don't think this movie was, so poorly made. It had a lot of money thrown into it, and it was a complete bomb. Um, but there were certainly things that were wrong with it that held it back from even breaking even, and that's why I give this movie a D plus. And then you can see how it fits in the rest of everything else. All right. Well, this was on my shelf for a while, and it was the main reason I hadn't been moving forward in this hunt for the run because I was just getting aggravated. But I worked it up and said, "Screw it, I'm gonna talk about it," and I hope y'all enjoy it. All right. Well, the next movie on this search is gonna be the Garbage Pail Kids movie. Oh fuck. And then the one on the quest for the best is gonna be One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which I will finally do. And then as for the other, like Waldo's Wacky World of Film, I'll figure that one out later. All right, that's probably gonna be Click though. I do have that in my list. Anyway, this was good to talk about. It may not have been as fun as other movies like the Star Wars movies or even some of the ones that are in the Wacky World of Film, but I felt like this did need to be talked about. All right. Well, I'm good to go, and I hope you all have a good day now. All right. Bye.